Okay, lesson number 4. This is the final lesson of step number 2. Now, let's talk about what you've done so far. You created the line. You made it crystal clear what is acceptable behavior and what is unacceptable behavior. Then you created a choice map, which lets your children know what their choices are and where the good choice goes and where the poor choice goes. Then you learned how to handle their resistance and to use their resistance to teach them how to make a better choice. Now it's time to outline your first talk with them. This is where you explain what's going to happen. Let me go over some points before you get into this meeting. Number 1, you might be tempted to roll this out slowly. Maybe to explain it to them and then give them a week to let it sink in, and then maybe to only enforce half of it and then do the other half later. Don't do that. I'm sorry, I've just seen parents try that over and over. It's a bad idea. 1, because it's very confusing to your kids. 1, you tell them you're going to do something, but you don't do it yet. So there's kind of this anticipation, and then they forget about it, and they seem all shocked when you bring it up again later because it's already out of their mind. And when you start implementing things slowly, they don't know when they need to comply and when not to comply, and it sets it up for them to resist it more because there's room to manipulate things. They can say stuff like, well, you should give me more time to figure this out, or you said I was going to get more chances. I really recommend you go right into it. And the biggest reason is for you. A lot of parents who, when they stagger it out, they don't see the results, and then they get discouraged and they say this isn't working. When they really had an excellent plan and an excellent way to move forward, they just weren't doing it all the way. So of course it's not going to work. Once you have this talk with them, you're 100% in, and you get through that resistance much more quickly that way, because there is going to be resistance, right? But now you're ready for it, and you jump in there and you move forward. And the second thing is, I recommend you make copies of the line and the choice map for your kids in that first talk. So they have a copy, you have a copy. And it's important that you have a copy too, because their copy tends to disappear. A lot of times kids think if that piece of paper disappears, the whole choice thing, the whole plan, the whole new way of doing things disappears. There's nothing magical about the paper. It's just a visual aid to help them see how things are going to happen. But you want to have an extra copy around in case theirs happens to walk away. Eliminate distractions. Turn off the cell phones or put them away. Turn off the TV. Have the distractions to a minimum because you want their attention. And the final point before you get into the meeting is whoever is helping with parenting, you want them in that meeting. So if it's father and a mother, or a grandparent and a parent, or whoever's involved in parenting, it's best to have a united front. We're a team, we all agree about this, and have everyone present in that first meeting. If that can't happen, then it can't happen, right? If it's just you doing this, then you do it and you're going to do great. But if you can have that support, bring them into the room, make sure they're on board. Everyone is very clear on what's going to happen, how it's going to happen. Let me give you an example of a mom and how she did her first meeting. She sat her children down and she said, guys, the way things have been going is not working. We are constantly arguing, we are fighting, we are overreacting over some really simple things. The way we treat each other just isn't who we are. We love each other, we care about each other, but the way things are going, it's not working. We have to do something different. So here's what we're going to do. And then she explained the line to them, and she showed them the choice map, and she told them about how everything was going to happen, went through that piece by piece, and then she said, do you guys have any questions? One of them was like, okay, and the other one's like, well, I'm not going to do that. And she said, look, it's important that we do this, and I understand this is hard, and you might not be able to see how this works, but you have a choice to make. And when you make this good choice, I promise you it's going to be better. And if you make the poor choice, well, I am going to follow through. I'm going to do whatever it takes for us to turn things around. And I know this is going to work. So this is going to be how it goes. And it starts right now. And then she ended the meeting. Now, let me go over something. How your kids respond to you explaining this is telling but irrelevant. Okay? It gives you an idea of how much resistance you're going to have, but it doesn't change what you're going to do. And I've seen the full gamut of it. I've seen some kids who are just super excited that there's this new plan and this new action and this cool looking chart, and they're all on board. And then when it comes time to actually follow through, all the resistance hits. I've seen some kids who will get up and walk away. There were some parents that I worked with. They actually had to have a text conversation with their son because he left the meeting, went upstairs, and would not participate. So they took a picture of the choice map and the line, and they sent it to his phone, and they texted back and forth, and they finished the meeting that way. Definitely not ideal, but they needed to let him know, and that's how they did it. All of that, don't get caught up in your children's reaction or how you say stuff. You don't have to say this perfectly. It's the fact that you're meeting and you're saying, look, there's a change coming. It's a good change. This is how it's going to go. I'm explaining to you. Now let's go. Here it is. From there, the important part is you following through and you being as consistent as possible. This is a really cool meeting, and you are going to do a great job at this. There's one last point that I want to make in this lesson. When you increase the communication with your kids, you speed up the results. Now, here's what I'm talking about. I call this a family huddle, and I recommend this to all the families I work with. And I take it from sports, right? A team has a game plan, but then they'll come together during the game when they're in the action, and they'll have a huddle. And they'll say, how's it going? How do we need to adjust? What do we have coming up next? How do we get around this obstacle? Same thing for your family. I really recommend, at least for the first month, so 4 more times once a week, you come together and you talk about how things are going. That's a time for your kids to talk about how they feel it's going, how you feel it's going, and then what's up for the next week. How are we going to do better? How are we going to move forward? It really speeds things up. And you can call it whatever you want. I have some families, they just call it a family meeting or a talk time or a check-in, whatever you want to call it. But have a time where you come together with your kids. And this is something you schedule. You set aside time, you eliminate the distractions, and you talk about how things are going. And if you want, pair it with something fun. And we're going to talk for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to play a game, or we're going to have a movie night, make some popcorn. It can be an interactive, fun part of the week, but it really helps to have that check-in. All right, now you are ready for step 3. And I don't want you to skip step 3. It's so important. It's what you've been working on. It's why you're doing this in the first place. You want to have a great relationship with your kids. You want to have a great atmosphere in the home. And we're going to talk about that. And it's also something that is really crucial. You want to see results quickly? Well, watch lesson 3 because it's the icing on the cake. And if you get my point, I don't want you to miss it because it's very important. So take a moment, look over everything you did in step number 2, and then join me in step number 3, and then we're going to wrap this thing up, and we're almost there.